Hi, this is Brianna Bracey, and today I'm here with Dylan, and we're going to discuss the reading that we had to do for the honors seminar class. So, how are you doing tonight?
Not great. I have an exam tomorrow.
Well, that's just college for you. So, you've read The Coddling of the American Mind?
Yes.
Something has been going wrong with many college campuses in the last few years, as it was discussed in the book. Students and professors were saying that they're like walking on eggshells and are afraid to speak honestly, and rates in anxiety, depression, and suicide are rising as a result. What is your opinion on the assumption made by the authors saying that college students are ill-prepared for the real world?
I think that some are, and I believe that some aren't. It's not like, it's an overgeneralization to say that college students aren't prepared for the real world. Because, again, this was written for the upper 1%. As my professor stated. And it is an overgeneralization to take the top 1% that has helicopter parents, that is so sheltered, that can't function on a college campus, and apply it to the other 99% of human beings. Because really, it's a spectrum. I think a lot of the people here at Stockton range from generally pretty prepared to kind of prepared. Like, no one is completely unprepared and no one is transitioning perfectly.
So, do you think that colleges, like more specifically colleges like Stockton University, help prepare students for the real world?
I think it does, yes. It's just a good deal of independence compared to a lot of homes. Like, for example, I don't really have to tell anybody where I'm going, when I'm going. I can just go and no one's here reminding me to do my assignments or do my laundry or clean my room. I have to do that all on my own. It's very close to having just an apartment.
So, do you believe that, like, with severe sheltering, like, more specifically, like you said, helicopter parenting, as described in the book, is, like, a direct influence on the negative effects, such as, like, anxiety and depression that our generation faces today?
It's definitely a big factor. I don't at all think it's the whole thing. But helicopter parenting definitely puts a lot of stress on a kid. If you think about a 10-year-old, what did a 10-year-old do however many years ago? I mean, if you think of what a lot of kids did, you went outside and you played and you went on bike rides, and when it got dark, you came home. And then as you got older, you didn't really come home when it got dark. But now you're inside studying for tests when you're 10, so you can get into the honors courses in middle school, then the honors courses in high school, and APs, and Yale, because everybody wants their kid to go to Yale, because you have to be an astrophysicist, but you don't.
So, do you think that with the technological advancements that are happening now, that's a direct factor of the stresses and anxiety that we feel now?
It feeds into the helicopter parenting. Like, the higher technology makes people want to go into computer science and very advanced scientific fields, which requires a lot of education. And that would feed into the helicopter parenting, which feeds into the anxiety because no one ever got any time to themselves.
So, in your opinion, why do you believe that parents are so insistent on protecting their children? Like, we know that parents are going to have that natural, like, loving, in some cases loving, or just overall protective nature, but why do you think helicopter parenting is a thing?
Well, part of it comes from the safetyism factor. You heard about the few cases where there was a car accident. Well, I mean, this is a better version of safetyism that actually was kind of needed, where the kid got in a car accident, the kid wasn't wearing a seatbelt, he flew through the windshield. So it was helpful to have a seatbelt on. But figuratively, you heard about, the one or two times a kid was abducted in his front yard, and now no one's allowed in the front yard alone. Or the one or two times a kid ran out in the street and got hit by a car, now no one's allowed in the front yard alone, which actually apparently needs to happen, at least, like, going out in the yard and playing with their friends without a parent watching their every move and telling them exactly how to play, because then they can figure out things on their own, and maybe they argue with their friends out there, they figure out how to argue on their own and handle confrontation.
So in the book, we're going to kind of go from the parenting to the more ways of handling the anxiety and depression. Mm-hmm. So you know how in the book it mentions the CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy?
Yeah.
So in your opinion, do you think that that's a legitimate way to handle really complex topics such as anxiety and depression, kind of like thinking?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to do things depending on the situation, but in the general situation that the book brings out, CBT can be very helpful because it's about goal-oriented things. So the anxiety comes from when kids get here, all they know how to do is school. They know how to do school great, but they don't know how to do their own laundry, solve conflicts on their own, handle it when someone, opposes their point of view, and that's where the anxiety comes from. And cognitive behavioral thinking sets concrete goals for them to do those things on their own.
So, do you believe that the book was just actually helped people like us who feel like anxious, and how college is kind of a really high pressured area? So when you read the book, did it change you in any way?
No.
How so?
It more told us what was wrong and gave us examples of what was wrong, and only the last very short chapter really told us how to fix it, and they were more institutional changes like universities and parents. It told us how to be better parents in the future, of course, but that doesn't help us. And number two, I had already planned to parent in a way that was less, overbearing.
So, do you believe this book did its initial purpose?
I think it got the point across. I don't really think it helped a lot of people. It was an interesting book that caused you to think, and maybe could cause you to realize that something was wrong, but it doesn't really tell you how to fix it individually.
What do you think the author should have focused more on to better improve our generation?
It should have, I don't really think that it can help somebody individually, because then it would essentially have to be a therapist in a book. But it could have focused on more general, it could have given very general examples of cognitive behavioral therapy to give people a way to think about things that would help them. So an example of cognitive behavioral therapy would be setting a goal. It would give goals for students. It could have done that.
Would you say that the minds that were being coddled were our generation, or more of the parents and the institutions, when the book was focusing on what minds were being coddled, what minds were kind of being protected and everything?
I think it was progressive. I think the minds of the people running the institution and our parents were kind of coddled, and that caused them to further coddle us, because they had as much fear as they had about themselves, they had more for their children and coddled them more. And if we don't change that for our generation as parents, and this is why the book was helpful, if we don't change that for ourselves as parents, it's just going to continue to get worse.
So, from the book and from the video that they showed us in the honors seminar, what is your opinion on the evergreen conflict?
That just went too far.
With the students kind of controlling the entire institution.
I mean, that's democracy, and democracy is good, but of course, everybody's having their opinion heard, and that's what it seems. But really, it's not, because anybody who doesn't agree that, if you're white, you can't help but be socialized into racism, or that we all need to get on this canoe, anybody that disagrees, including a student, is completely shut out. And it may seem like democracy, but it's really just a silencing of voices, and a lot of people, as the guy in the video said, sleepwalking, or they're zombies moving towards the same goal without knowing what even this goal is. They're just going with the crowd because they're afraid to speak out.
So, do you have any additional comments or ideas that you got from the book after reading it?
I guess it alerted me to that fact that there is this problem, and you'd heard, anxiety is rising, depression is rising. I never knew why until now, and it alerts me to this problem, and it made me feel grateful to be in Stockton, where SR classes, it's a very open discussion where a lot of viewpoints can be heard and no one argues, and no one, cries or gets offended or something like that.
Thank you so much.